Stuart Kettlewell has made Motherwell the place for young players to get a chance, and he's combining it with first team success. It's a fantastic story at Fir Park, and he opens up on one about why it is so important for him to create a genuine pathway for prospects to the first team. But he talks about so much more. Take time out to watch it, you'll enjoy it. Stuart, it's been 33 years since Motherwell won a major trophy, but there's many people, myself included, who think the club deserves one alone for the player development here. It's seriously impressive. I have to say, indebted to Gary King at Stenhousemuir FC, who last week revealed that Motherwell are way ahead of any other team in the top flight for minutes for Scottish under-21 players this season. That's impressive, Stuart. You must be proud of that.
Yeah, it is, and I probably come to this football club during a spell of transition. Behind the scenes, you know, Alan Burrows moving on to Aberdeen, obviously the change of manager at the time. I think we were sitting at the bottom of the league. But you know what, I've been really fortunate in the sense that I suppose my ethos marries in and matches the football clubs. I think there's been a lot made recently of young players playing for Motherwell. But if you actually look back throughout the years, and I'm big on that history of the football club and what we do as a football club, and what's important to you, what's important to supporters in the community. We produce our own players, we bring our own players through. This football club needs a manager that's going to give young players a chance. I'm delighted that we sit at the top of that statistic, but anybody that looks back beyond Motherwell and to me as a manager and a coach before, it's the bit that gets me up every single morning. It's the bit that I want to try and empower young players. I want to try and give young players that opportunity to play. That's probably ingrained in me from an early age, working with guys like Billy Stark at Queen's Park, where it was just a young group of players that were exciting to watch, that had energy, and it's always been in the back of my mind. And I think the important thing as well is, again, you know, me coming into coaching, it was as a development coach, and I still see myself as that. As much as I could tell you at an early age I always wanted to be a football manager. I know a lot of people sort of dip their toe in the water and they're not quite sure. I could have told you as a teenager that I always wanted to be a football manager. I've always been obsessed with the game. I've always been obsessed with the workings of the game.
A teenager?
100%, yeah.
That was a dream?
I absolutely always wanted to become a manager. It's been something that had always intrigued me, but I tried to get that blend between being a coach and trying to be, you know, someone that tries to develop players, which is really important to me, but also that bit that I think you can only learn through time, which is to become an actual manager and be the person that's at the top of the tree that's responsible for everything.
I mean, most football daft teenagers would probably want to be a striker, but you were wanting to be a manager at that point.
I wanted to be, I don't want that to sound silly. I always wanted to be a football player, and I always wanted to try and achieve as much as I could as a football player. But I genuinely, and probably most coaches that you would speak to that work with me would tell you that I always had that intrigue about sizes of sessions, why we were doing particular sessions, what the good outcomes were, what the bad outcomes were. One of my things was always about the bad outcomes. Try and challenge yourself to find out how that could be better. How could it be better for us as players? So it wasn't just that. I think we talk a lot about football players just having this selfish mentality of it's just about me performing well today. I always tried to look at the bigger picture of that. I always had an intrigue as to what the session was about and why it was there, and I'm fortunate I work with a lot of good coaches and a lot of good, well, I would say developers, people that were good at developing, you know, helping to facilitate the development of football players.
So even as a teenager, who were the managers at that point that you would look at? Obviously, there would be players that you would idolise, but were there managers then that particularly stood out for you?
I think the obvious ones, you know. I mean, grew up in an era of guys like Walter Smith, and I was always so blown away by that authority, you know, that leadership, and you know, sometimes I look says 1,000 words and guys like Walter Smith, you know. So Alec Ferguson, of course, sits in there as well. But then when you start to filter back down, you know, I do have just mentioned him there. Billy Stark was somebody that was a huge influence on me, and it was, as I say, Billy was a coach. He was a manager at Queen's Park, but it was at a point in my life and my career where you were so influenced by almost that kind of father figure, but somebody that I felt, you know, it was something I'd never seen routine before with his thoughts in the game, how he wanted it to be played. You know, I would be called possibly a kind of hatchet man type of player, you know, and I say that in the best possible way, as in my job was to get the ball back and at times fight and scrap and make sure that your team were competitive in a game. But I was fortunate in likes of Queen's Park and Ross County that I played with proper football teams. You know, I played with a lot of good players and we played some lovely football, and you know, we broke a lot of records in those two teams that I played for. And as much as my job was a particular thing, it was certainly in an environment where you were encouraged to entertain, to attack, to score goals. So I knew what my role was within that, but I suppose that allows you to see both aspects of the game, which I think is imperative in this country.
I think this season, you know, what makes the player development stat even more impressive, Stuart, is that the team are also doing well. You're 7 points, as we speak, 7 points better off than you were this time last year. So you've got that balance between having the courage to blood young players, but at the same time maintaining results. That's quite impressive.
I think that's always been a challenge for me. Because when I first came into management, I want it to look like there's player development at your football clubs. You think back, the two clubs that I've managed, Ross County and Motherwell, there has to be a particular business model for these football clubs, you know, for us to do well on the pitch, for us to have a future beyond this year and beyond next week and the next game, then we must have sellable assets. We must look to produce sellable assets. As much as we sit at the top of that statistic at this minute in time, we can celebrate that all we want. I genuinely want that to improve. I want that to increase. But I think the thing that we miss in all of this as well, that almost sounds as if I want 11 Lennon Millers, 18-year-olds on the pitch, Ewan Wilson's 19-year-olds on the pitch. It's not for me, the secret and the balance in all of this is to have some top senior players in that as well, to have some real good experience, try and get the blend right, because you're never going to have that group of 11 teenagers that's going to be successful. And we've had a lot of plaudits. There was spells last year, Derek, that we had a lot of plaudits for some of the football that we were playing, but maybe not coming out with the results that we felt our performances deserved. So again, that's where you always challenge yourself as a manager, and I have done that massively to try and get that balance right of achieving results, which, as we know, keeps managers in jobs, but also trying to improve the player.
I think that's where I and a lot of others, Stuart, admire you, because particularly in the top flight, managers are under such intense pressure to get results that too often they don't feel they can blood youngsters, because it could be too precarious for them. But that's not stopped you, and at the same time the first team is pushing ahead very well indeed. I mean, what's been the key to that? Is it your man management, or is it just having the nerve to back the young player?
I accept mistakes is one thing. You know, we'll hear here sometimes that if somebody gives the ball away, or we can see the goal, or we have a bad 5 minutes in the game of football, I'm not a knee-jerk manager, I'm not a knee-jerk coach, and I think to try and work with young players, you need to have that mindset. You need to understand that at times they give the ball away. That doesn't mean they need to come off the pitch. And I kind of have that catchphrase as well. Is it a worse mistake if an 18-year-old gives the ball away as a 34-year-old or a 35-year-old that's played 500 or 600 games? I think sometimes the concept in this country is that if a young player does it, it's because he's a young player. Sometimes they do it because they're human beings and they make mistakes. And that's not a blasé attitude. That's not me sitting in a position whereby I say that it's fine that we can have a hat full of mistakes and we'll still win games of football. But the difference in making a mistake is I need to be there to try and support the younger players and the senior players to make sure that they understand why the mistake was made and what the solution is for it. Because I talk about also, I've done a bit of punditry work when I was out of the game. You talk about the coach pundit or the pundit coach. So that's a wee catchphrase that I use as well, because I think that the pundit that sits there telling you what's wrong, but you need to come up with a solution. So that's what I'm saying, that you go for a pundit to being a coach, because the coach then solves the problem and helps the young player or the senior player understand what the mistake was. But how do you put that into practice on the pitch? How do you resolve it? And how do you repeat that skill, or how do you repeat that decision-making process to try and get it right? And sometimes, I don't know, my brain works in a different way, but that's something I've used because I've done that little punditry bit and been on doing various things, and you critique other teams. But I never done the punditry bit without thinking about what the solution was, and that's not a criticism of anybody. It's just that you have to think in two separate ways. There's a problem, but there's also the solution.
You've got a fantastic poster boy if I can call him that, Lennon Miller, you know, it's such a high profile already. Fantastic for your academy, fantastic for every other young player to come through. And he's in the team in merit. He's not just in because Motherwell have a project. And he's been in the team for a couple of years now. Do you see the effect on the academy and the other young players? Did you see the buzz that gives the other young prospect?
Yeah, but again, try to look at the bigger picture. It's where I hope that this helps. For example, David Clarkson is our academy director now. When I first came into the football club, David and I have built a brilliant relationship, as you know, a personal relationship, but also a working relationship. And for us, you know, we then start to look at your under 13s, your under 14s. Is that the type of thing that encourages parents to send their kids to Motherwell to try and come into the academy here because they can see a pathway? I
was going to say, Stuart, I mean, a lot of managers, you know, your peers and other managers will give all that chat to parents. But parents, when Motherwell are approaching them for their sons, their daughters, they can genuinely see it. Yeah, they can see it's there.
I think about something that's tangible, something that you can actually see. I talk about walking in the shoes. You know, a lot of people have got an opinion on how to be a good footballer, but I've never done it. A lot of people have got an opinion on how to be a good manager and how to make the correct decisions. But if you've never done it and you've never walked in the shoes, it's only ever theory. And I'm huge on putting things into practice. So I think, yeah, you're absolutely spot on. I look at Lennon. He's quite clearly that leading light. I need to probably stress as well that there's time for us probably just to take that wee step back and let him breathe and understand that he's an 18-year-old within that as well as what he's doing on the pitch. But I do think that that's possibly helped inspire Ewan Wilson. I think that that's probably helped in his integration into the first team and his pathway and his journey. You look at, you know, we had another young 16-year-old on our bench at the weekend there who has been doing well, struggled a wee bit with injury, but somebody that we think can really progress quickly as well. So, yeah, I think that you have to see that example in front of you. But I'm going to stress it again. I want to continue doing that. It's not just about that flash in the pan. It's not just about one player that comes through that we talk about for the next 10 years. Are we going to get 5 or 6 through every single year? No. But I do believe that there can be an opportunity to get at least 1 or 2, as we've done again this season, into our group. And probably just to piggyback on that, we've 6 young ones, 7 young players that we've created this little development group is what we call, and we've got 7 of them out on loan. We've got a system here now where we've got one of our analysts that dovetails as a loan manager. A lot of clubs have that standalone loans manager. We have to do it a different way here. I'm out watching games. I'm out watching these loan boys continuously, as is Stevie Frail, my assistant manager. The spread that we get and the game coverage we get here through commitment and because we take it serious is unbelievable. But we've got a couple of young lads in there that we quite like as well. So as much as you're not seeing them here on the ground at this minute in time, there's still a couple that we think that this process of not having a B team or not having a reserve team, that they've had that experience in and about the first team squad last year. Now they need to go and try and get themselves 20 to 30 games to start to kick on and to start to improve.
Now you turn 40 in the summer. Not ancient by any means, Stuart, but
might look it with a grey beard.
Not at all, but do you feel even older now that the new chairman is 7 years younger?
Yeah, but it's something.
Kirk McMillan, who's made, I think, already an impressive start, the way he speaks and the way he comes across.
Yeah, I love pushing the boundaries that way. I've always been somebody that's been brought up with respect, with experience and age. I always have done, you know, round the country. When I first started playing, I always respected senior players. You looked up to them. They were almost your gods. And even when they were wrong, they were right, was kind of my mentality and how I always looked upon it. You know, guys like when I first came in as a kid to Queen's Park, guys like Ali Graham and Paul Harvey and these guys, you know, I thought they were absolutely brilliant. They were terrific with me. But I also look at that with managers. You know, I come into management. I believe I'm somebody that respects and sits and listens to the guys that have got the 500, 600, 700 games under their belt. They've done that for a reason. But what I've also loved is to try and push boundaries as early as you possibly can. I was a really young manager, I don't know, 33 or something, and I had sort of 3 years coaching experience and until that point. A lot of games at under 20 level at that stage. But as soon as you go into management, you know, you start to think about growing a beard and stuff like that, so that you look a bit older and you start to you start to, you know, it's like sometimes people look at you and almost that bit of disrespect.
You think the beard enhances the stature?
I look about 12 years old when I don't have the beard, believe it or not. But it's just those little things. But when I look at the likes of Kirk, age is no boundary. It's what we're going back to saying about football players. You know, it's about the quality of your work. It's about your passion to try and contribute and to try and help out. And I think Kurt's made that abundantly clear that he's here as a support network, you know, for the likes of myself as the head of the football department, the manager of the football club, Brian Caldwell, who I believe we're so lucky to have here as a chief executive with his experience and his knowledge and the relationship that I've managed to build up with him in a relatively short space of time. I think you heard Kurt the other day speaking about being there as a support network. This football club works different from my previous football club at Ross County, where the chairman's involved on a daily basis. He's the owner, he's the person that finances the whole operation. It's a wee bit different here, but what you need is with the guys that have come onto that executive board, you need their skill set, you need their different way of thinking just to add to something as opposed to rip it up and start again.
4 children you've got?
Yeah.
Ages?
20, 14, 9 and 4, so a bit of spread.
Now, particularly your 20 and your 14-year-olds will be fashion conscious. They'll be into their gear.
Yeah, it's fair to say.
So your new chairman is chief executive of a major clothing brand.
Yeah.
Does that bring a pressure to you from the 2 oldest kids?
No,
any chance of some free gear?
It actually goes back further than that, because my former teammate Mark Corcoran, along with Stephen Robb, they were kind of co-founders of the company. So I actually spoke to Mark just a week or 2 ago through text, and delighted for him.
Well, you try to get some gear as well?
Yeah, I was trying to see if I could upgrade my wardrobe. But no, absolutely delighted for him, how successful they are, and you know, he'll ping messages looking out for results, and obviously
both of them must be close to being millionaires by now, Stuart. Surely they could invest in here, no?
Well, they actually came here about a year ago, and I think the players have been pushing for it again, because you're talking to somebody that's got no fashion sense, but I don't know what they call it, but they're basically coming out and...
I'm not going to have a go at you, Stuart.
I don't know what to say. But they're coming out and they're handing out the clothing to all the lads and styling them, doing all this kind of styling stuff. So the boys have been banging the drum to see if we can get them in again.
Who are the boys in the dressing room that fancy themselves as catwalk material?
Well, I don't know. We had a recovery day yesterday with a bounce game on Tuesday, and then we had a bit of recovery day, and we tried to mix it up. We took the lads to the escape rooms, so a wee bit of team bonding, trying to find out who the smart ones are to solve problems and whatnot to get out the escape room. It's not so much that. I was hoping some of them stayed in because of some of their gear, honestly. Tony Watt's choice of attire was horrendous, so it was, but I will definitely need to get the boys to be inspired in to try and do something about it.
How did you celebrate being 40?
Again, you'll laugh. I don't do anything that way. I'm not a birthday guy. You just need to ask my missus. I don't know the last time I got a birthday card or a Christmas card or anything. It's just, I'm not very sentimental that way at all. What I did was, I seem to remember I was actually on holiday and I got a game of golf with my oldest son and my dad, so that was perfect for me.
You don't get your wife birthday cards or Christmas?
Nah,
really?
She's got an understanding that I'm just not the most sentimental guy in the world. I think most people that know me understand that.
How long have you been married?
We're not actually married, believe it or not. We're engaged and have been for some time, but as you'll understand, 4 kids later, then it does change a lot in our life.
How does the engagement last so long with no birthday cards and no Christmas cards? I mean,
it's,
most men in your situation would last 5 minutes. Sure.
I think you do this job, and genuinely, my missus Katie's unbelievable, just in terms of the amount of hours that you spend here. I'm an early starter and a late finisher, trying to take in as many games as I can, and I don't know, it's maybe telling me something that she wants me at the house and she's still wanting me about there.
Does she like football?
She comes to a lot of the games. The kids are really enthusiastic to come and watch Motherwell. They were the same at Ross County, as I say. They were the same with the ones that were about when I played. So, very, very supportive family, Derek. They're great that way.
Now, your son's in the SFA Performance School.
Yep.
What's his position? Clearly his big ambition is to become a football star.
Yeah, he's just a wee lad, just a boy that's loved playing football. Kind of tell a story when we got to the Scottish Cup final. with Ross County back in 2010. I think he was only a matter of a month or two old, and he was at the game. So you speak about it, he's all he's ever known is football. All he ever sees is football. So there's just been that built-up obsession with the game, really. But whatever he does or wherever that goes, he's dedicated. He works exceptionally hard. I try and use him as an example sometimes.
What's his name?
Ethan Kettlewell. So he's up at 6 o'clock every morning.
Wow.
He gets the bus at 7 o'clock to get to his school out in Falkirk. Public bus service. Sometimes it turns up, sometimes it doesn't. But I love it. There's not been a morning I've had to get him up. I'm up. I leave the house at the back of 6 every morning, and he's up. He's into the uniform. He's ready. He's changed, and he's ready to go. One or two people I've had a debate at times that's too much, maybe for a young lad in first and second year, whatever. I just think it's that dedication that's required to do something. Now, whether that takes him further in football, I just think it takes you further in life. And I just love the work ethic, and I just love the dedication that he has in doing so.
Oh, I mean, you'd be proud of all your children, clearly, but for someone at that age, is it heart and soul for him? Is it real, this is what he wants to do, and whatever it takes he's going to...
Yeah, well, I think that's what he would love to do, and I think that's what he, something that he wants to go and give the best go to that he possibly can. But as many people that have been involved in football as much as maybe what I have, there's absolutely no pressure. Anybody will tell you, in the rare occasion that I get to go and watch him play, I stand at the far side, I stand out the way, and I don't speak, I don't talk. He's up in St Johnstone's Academy just now. The guys knock their pan in. The guys dedicate so much time to it. They're trying to achieve the best product that they possibly can with the resources that they've got in their academy, which isn't as big as a lot of the clubs in the country. I would never intervene. I would never interfere. All you're there for, and again, this is probably me getting my soapbox, all you're there for as a parent is a support network. Yeah. Not to just support you when you're doing well, but not to find fault in people when they're not doing so well. I feel that's a parent's job, is to pick them up when they've had a knockback, or when they've had a bad spell of games, or they're not quite enjoying it. Your job is to take them to where they need to be, but also just to support your child, and not to have that. You see it so often, Derek. I'm not going to lie. It's something I'm out watching that many games, be it grassroots, be it out watching Ethan play at St Johnstone, and maybe not so much there. But my other son, Reece, at 9-year-old, and I'm so passionate about this. I really am. I'm watching it the other day. I managed to catch 20 minutes of his game before I come here for our game against. What was our game at the weekend? St Johnstone. And I drop into Cumbernauld to watch, and you see the behaviour and you see the actions of some parents. And I know I'll not make myself popular by saying that, but we're constantly studying why we can't get to a point to put young kids into a first team. I genuinely believe that starts at grassroots level. We see guys that give up their time. We see guys that give up 2-3 nights a week plus their weekend, and then you hear some of the shouts and some of the antics and some of the behaviour. Almost
embarrassing.
I do generally get embarrassed for it. I've got a 9-year-old son, and the last thing I say to him every single time he goes out to play football, be it training or be it a match on a Saturday, is you make sure you come off with a sweat in your brow. Your face should be a bit red, but you should have a smile on your face. You need to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, and you feel under pressure by the actions and the antics and the shouting and the ball and appearance at the side of the pitch, and I speak about it sometimes as people trying to show off that they know something about football. It's not about you, it's about the person. It's about the young lad that's on the pitch, or the young girl that's on the pitch, that's trying to forge their way and trying to hone their skills and improve their skills.
In saying that, you're perfectly right about grown-up conduct in the touchline, but in saying that, you're still human. In all honesty, has there been moments when you've been watching one of your boys play and you've had to kind of just compose yourself for a split second? You might have seen something, they might have been tackled badly, or no, that you've never had that urge
would never react to a bad tackle, would never react to a poor decision for their teammate. Genuinely, what has me on edge, and what really, as I say, when I played football, it was unbelievably aggressive. What really irks me is the action of adults. I always believe, Derek, that children will sort out in the pitch. We all grew up playing football on the street. you always sorted out whose ball it was. You were always able to sort out whether the ball had crossed the line or whatever. We didn't need intervention for adults or parents.
No, that's the best way.
Yeah, and that's how I think that the kids learn to evolve together, as opposed to that intervention of, for me at times, just complete overreaction. Sometimes a wee bit of abuse of power, you know, and authority. And being an adult, is, I genuinely I struggle with so much of that. And you know, I've got my brother, I think, helps his son's team and does a wee bit of coaching with his son's team coming through at grassroots, and he's only young, 6 or 7 or whatever. And I speak to him every weekend, asking how the wee fella had got on, and asking how he got on. Did he enjoy it? Did you see a new skill? Did you see a new trick, or did he go and try and use his imagination? And sometimes, often, the first thing that comes back is the behaviour of adults, which, you know, we need to address it. I know I'm on my soapbox, I know I'm speaking a lot about it, but I genuinely believe that needs to be addressed, and it has to be something that's changed in this country.
Now, your father, your brother, big Rangers fans?
Yeah.
Pretty well documented?
Yeah.
How did they feel when you took the team to Ibrox during the title run-in and won at Ibrox? Were they proud of you, or was it just disdain?
Nah,
or was there a mixture of both?
Listen, I speak about it so much as well that there's a lot of laughing and kidding about it. My brother, you know, he's got a season ticket at Ibrox, and
I mean, Rangers were top of the league.
He's a Rangers supporter.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, they were, and you know, it was I don't think he spoke to me. If I remember right, I think Celtic lost the next again day at Tynecastle. So he didn't speak to me for a few hours, and then after Celtic, I think I dropped points. Then I got a text message. But nah, it's slightly different, you know, because my brother will go and support the team and pays his money and has his season ticket and all that type of stuff. But my dad's followed me everywhere, and as much as that was his team growing up, that kind of all changes now. You know, he follows my career, he supports my career. We played Rangers in the semi-final, and my dad was in the director's box with the rest of the family there supporting Motherwell, and you know, willing us on to go and try and do well. So I think when you've supported your child as much as he has done, and him and my mum, you know, taking you where you need to be, following us up to Dingwall and all that kind of stuff when I was up there, they've only kind of got one cause and one support at that point, you know.
Of course, I jest, but I can only imagine what it means to them to see you doing well. You know, the family seeing you doing well, it'll be fantastic for them. Yeah,
I think probably just, you know, it's the work ethic. I think I'm brought up for very much a working class family, from a joiner and a nurse, and two people that worked incredibly hard, and I think that's possibly been my biggest influence as a person. I'm not saying that hard work always gets you somewhere, but I don't think you get anywhere without hard work. I just feel that's always been my fundamental. You know, we start off a conversation talking about young players and development. It's the first place that I start, and I think everything relates back to your pathway in your career. As a young lad that didn't go full time in football, I think I was maybe 21, 22. I worked in a bank for about 4 or 5 years, played part time, had a burning desire still to be a full time football player. Never quite got that opportunity, and I never beat myself up about it, and I never blamed anybody else. So my only answer to everything was to try and work harder and to try and improve, and that's kind of the mindset I've got now. You know, as much as we here at Motherwell have had a pretty decent start to the season, you'll notice that we're in here on a Thursday and an international break, and you'll see all the players still walking about here. This isn't a time for holidays. This isn't a time to down tools. This is a time to try and keep working and to try and improve. And I don't say that to impress anybody. It's just I don't sit comfortable in my house at night. If I go and give players 4, 5, 6 days to go and jet off here, there and everywhere, whilst we go into an international break, we need to get better. We need to improve, and as I say, that's a bit that drives me on every single day.
Of course, I have to say, your father and your brother would have been thrilled when you were Ross County manager and won at Celtic.
No, genuinely, it's not. We know what this is like. West Central Scotland, you know, you come. No, not at all. You come from one side or the other, and as you can see with the track record and the history, I've got so much desire to win every single game of football. I think one that was especially pleasing for us here was to win at Ibrox for the first time in 27 years, and what that meant to Motherwell Football Club, for it being so long to win there in the league, and to try and put that little marker down, and to see us, to be honest, Derek, being as competitive as we have been with the top clubs in the country over the time I've been manager here.
I think this is one of the great clubs in Scottish football. It's one of the proudest clubs in Scottish football. So for you to be manager here, for the team to be recognised as a good football team, a player development club, that must be an enormous source of pride for you, but also motivation as well, because you want to maintain that.
No, without a doubt, you know, you look and you see some of the faces that surround us in the corner of the stands here, absolute legends of this football club. You know, you look at somebody like Phil O'Donnell, you know, David Clarkson being his nephew, our academy director. I make it my point in knowing the history about this football club and the proud history of the football club, what it means. You know, my management style, I believe, has to, and how I go about my business has to reflect this area. Now, I'm not from Motherwell, I'm from North Lanarkshire originally, so you get a little bit of a taste and a concept of what that is. And it's not to be nostalgic, and it's not to see if I can win any fans, but I think to get the connection right with the players and to do things well on the pitch, we have to understand what people expect and what they want to see in a Motherwell team. When they put on that Motherwell jersey, what should that look like? And for me, I still to this day dig into, you know, our kit man Alan, who's been here for 20 odd years, our secretary Karen, who's been here for 30 odd years. They'll tell you that at times I'm picking their brain about things that happened in the past and just different ways of thinking, how different people represented the football club and what impact that had, and that's massive for me. I've seen someone before, you know, a new manager comes into a football club and starts taking down memorabilia and saying that it's almost as if this is the start of the history of this football club. What I actually done here was insisted that we started putting up all the memorabilia around about the walls, and you'll see jerseys in there, and you'll see loads of different bits of memorabilia. Kitman's room is one of the, for me, one of the special places in Scottish football. My kids, every time they come in here, go running to see it and look at all the jerseys and all the history that's in there, because I'm really big on knowing what that is, but also seeing if you can try and create your piece of history. And I speak to our players about that all the time. As difficult as it is for us, maybe in the top flight, when the resources we have absolutely sit at the bottom end of this league, it doesn't mean to say that you can't put your little bit of your stamp on that and put your own bit of history in.
It's people that make a club, isn't it?
Without doubt.
And obviously you're high profile, the players are high profile, but behind the scenes they're good people at every level of this club, isn't there?
Honestly, I'll tell you again that the support staff that I have here are just incredible, from the community trust and the work that's done there. You know, the women's team, Paul Brownlee and his staff, and the work that they're doing to try and evolve and to try and grow. My football staff that sit there, between the analysts, sports scientists, coaching staff, we're a really tight-knit group. And you look at Brian and all his staff that work behind the scenes there, between commercial, between finance, you know, your chief executive, the girls and ticketing. Genuinely, it's a proper football club, and my terminology and my wording, it's a proper football club. And there's so many Motherwell fans that actually work here as well, which is terrific for me, because you want the best for your football team. Now, that's not always the case, that's not always the situation, but when you have that, that's almost a motivator and a driver for some of the rest of us that are almost those outsiders that come to a club that haven't been brought up supporting it. But I look at the ground staff here. We've got our head of safety, who, you know, followed the football club for he was yay high. Same with our kit man, same with our secretary. It's fantastic, it's brilliant. And again, for the players' point of view, they know these people so well. You don't want to let them down. You don't want to let them down. You want to do the best you possibly can for them.
We were talking about Lennon Miller earlier, and that's what particularly impresses me about Lennon as well. And because he's probably your highest profile player at the moment, but for someone so young, he conducts himself well, he speaks well. Obviously his father was a terrific football player, Lee. Represents Motherwell terrifically well too, you know?
Yeah, it's as important to me as anything else. We all talk about player development, and do you put the ball in the top corner? Do you make a good pass in the game? How have you performed in the game? I think they go hand in glove, to be honest with you. How good a person you are, how you behave off the pitch, how you respect the staff that I've just spoken about there, will have an impact on what you are as a football player. And we work really hard with our young players here. We've got an under-18s development group that are in here full time, and one of the first things that we want to do is to try and help them, because I say you never make anybody. I've never made a football player in my life. It's never been me that has made a football player. I see all the egomaniacs running about and telling you, oh, he was was one of my boys and I had him and I was one of the guys, I scouted him and I'd done this. We don't make anybody. We don't make anybody as coaches or development coaches or managers. All we do is we're facilitators. If you're good at what you do, I believe you're a good facilitator. You point people in the right direction. You put the demands on them. If the standard drops below, you tell them why it's dropped below. And I have to give up my time to do this as well, you know, and what I mean by giving up my time, I need to spend more time on the pitch, I need to spend more time in the analysis room, I need to spend more time one-to-one with players to try and get the best out of them. If I was happy to come in here at 9 o'clock in the morning and disappear at 2 o'clock, do you genuinely think those players are going to get better? I come in here for 7 o'clock before 7 o'clock every single morning, and I leave whatever time at night, you know, it's after tea time, you know, it's after what most people would call their dinner time. And again, that's not to impress anybody, but to get the best out of people and to try and dedicate my time to get the best out of this role and this opportunity that I have to work as a manager at a football club as good as this one, I'm going to maximise that opportunity. I'm going to pour everything into it so that when I get home at night and I can look in the mirror, sometimes my kids are in their bed, especially the wee ones already tucked up in his bed, the other ones maybe out at football training. I don't see a lot of them. That's why I say they're incredibly supportive of the time that I dedicate to this, along with the staff. That's the only chance we've got of improving people, because if I try and kid everybody on here, that I just, you know, as I say, turn up here, no thought process into what a session's going to look like, no thought process towards the game at the weekend, no thought process that there's 2 or 3 players that are struggling a little bit, they need to do a wee bit extra on the pitch. That's my favourite bit. Everybody will tell you about being on the grass. The best bit is coaching. That's the easy bit. For me, that's the easy bit. The harder bits are what you do off the pitch and the things that you've got to manage and navigate round off the pitch. I've possibly seen it all at this point with the amount of years as a relatively young manager I've been doing this, but the best bit, and everyone will tell you, being on the grass, that's the best bit. Spend time doing it, dedicate your time to it. I would love this club to evolve. I would love us to have a facility whereby the training ground is directly beside the training pitch, so we can go again in the afternoon, and you know, we can come in and start earlier. We can really maximise the time and take it as serious as we can. We do the best with what we have, absolutely, just now, but without question, guys like myself and Brian Caldwell would love to work towards having that training facility which is conducive to trying to help produce even more football players.
You're talking potentially maybe getting 5 million plus for Lennon Miller. I mean, that kind of money could theoretically go towards that kind of facility. Is that how the club would see that, maybe, do you think, if you were to get that kind of fee for Lennon?
Yeah, again, I'm not going to get into rhyme and verse about what the thought process is or what the options might be. But again, fundamentally for me, to have the best possible environment to continue to develop your own players, to bring through your own players, I think at some point it becomes an absolute necessity. Now, as I say, we maximise what we have. We do the best with absolutely what we've got. Unfortunately, at this minute in time, with the first team train in comparison to where the academy sits, it's separate. We all know this costs a lot of money if you want to get what is my blue sky thinking, and I only ever say this to try and be the best that we possibly can be, but it absolutely has to be something that I'm trying to push and drive every single day. I know that it's something that's at the forefront of Brian's mind as well, but again, a lot of clubs have got lovely training facilities, big training facilities. It's not so much about that, but it's having that base where we go, where we're kind of identifiable. But that becomes your work, that becomes your haven for trying to improve. That becomes an opportunity for a place that you spend so much time in. But as I say, you can have the all singing, all dancing facilities, but it's what you do with it. It's the time you dedicate to try and make sure something comes out the other end of it, and it's not just a good facility that we talk about. But we would love to try and get there.
Stuart, you were a midfield killer as a player. 14 red cards. Is that harsh to describe you that way? Were you a destroyer, a killer, a hatchet man? How would you describe it?
None of those 14 red cards were justified, in my opinion. Nah.
Were they all appealable?
Now they would be. If they'd VAR, I would have been fine. Nah, listen, I think I was probably, I speak about it, my job, and you know, I was legs. I was somebody that could run probably more than anybody else in the team, and had energy. Certainly when I described myself as the most technical player in the world, but I could get the ball back for you, felt I could drive the team forward, drive the team back, and when you love a tackle, and in a day and age where it was a wee bit more accepted than it is now. Yeah, that was kind of my job, as I say. But I felt every team had a similar type of player. I was going to say,
in fairness, every good team, it's a blend of everything, and every good team needs,
and,
a ball winner.
I think just my enthusiasm for the game, my enthusiasm to be combative and to make sure that nobody was getting the better of me or my teammate round about us. That was my job. As I say, would you be able to go about and play like that now? That 14 red cards would be a heck of a lot more than that. I generally tried for that not to be, and arguing and talking back to referees always, any punishment by and large was in the tackle. But as I say, it was a way that I probably felt I would have a career in the game, and I think that's important. If we keep relating it back to how do you get a chance to progress in football, I think you need to very quickly understand what your super strengths are. You need to understand what your makeup as a player, and how can you get in the manager's eye line so that he trusts you. And I suppose from my side of things, that was probably where I got an opportunity. Manager knew I was energy. Manager knew that I'd get the ball back for us, and knew that I'd possibly pitch in with the odd goal here and there, trying to make midfield runs into the box. And I'll tell anybody, listen, I might actually have quite a few quid more in the bank if I could actually finish, because I could get into good positions, but couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. But no, listen, you play football, Derek, and for me, it's there to be loved, it's there to be enjoyed. That was how I played the game, even though it was with a skill and a bit of anger and a bit of frustration sometimes, and kind of slabbering to get after your next tackle. I just loved playing the game, and when you have to retire at 30, as I did, because of bad arthritis in my hip and years of abuse and no stopping to go and see a physio and just continually keep playing through it, then you get to a point where how do you substitute that buzz and that excitement of playing in the game? It's difficult, but fortunately coaching was able to kind of transition me into the next part. If
you don't mind me asking, does that arthritis affect you just now? What's the consequence of that?
It's bad. I had an operation. As I say, when I was 30, I couldn't play on. I had a wee bit of go, dipped out, went to Brora Rangers, tried to play a bit. But even at this day, I'm in constant pain with it. I think that will result at some point in having to get a hip replacement.
It's every day a level of pain, and it's just a case of managing it and dealing with it.
Without being over dramatic. I'm not asking anybody to feel sorry for me. It's just I feel it all the time. I don't exercise now. I don't run. I think the only sport I would play would be something along the lines of golf, which even I've got to kind of limit sometimes because you get a bit of pain or whatever for that. So the odd game I had tennis here with the staff's about as far as I can go, and probably can't do that too much. But I would have changed playing through it for that many years and trying to grind it out, because I think a lot of players now want to finish the game and have the perfect MOT and make sure that there's not a scratch or a mark in your body. I think if you do anything right, there'll always be a bit of consequence in some way, shape or form, especially in football, to the body.
I mean, Ross County is a club that obviously features strongly in your career, Stuart, and talking about you as a player, you're part of that team, 40 games unbeaten. Mm-hmm. You win the championship, you go into the Premier League, fantastic record, really good side. A manager in Derek Adams that clearly had got everyone going the one way. But the two of the biggest games in the club's history, you were on the bench.
Yep.
Unused sub. Mm-hmm. Semi-final win over Celtic, and then the Scottish Cup final. How hard was that for you?
It possibly still sits as one of my biggest motivators, to be honest with you. You talk about that adversity. Do you feel sorry for yourself in that moment of disappointment? Do you feel sorry for yourself? And it probably doesn't motivate me in a managerial sense or a coaching sense. But as a player after that, it was something that really stuck in my throat. It was something that I felt I could have contributed. It felt as if something I could have done. I think that the game changes now. Everybody's got a voice and everybody's got an opinion. I can genuinely tell you that me and the vast majority of the lads that I played with at that time, if you were dealt that disappointment, your answer was to get back on the pitch and go and try and prove to somebody that you were worth something and that you could actually achieve something and that you were going to be a good player in their team. didn't go and chap the manager's door. You didn't go, and it wasn't in fear. It wasn't in fear of chapping the manager's door. It was his job to pick the team, and it was my job to try and make sure that I could get into the team. And even I've spoken to one or two guys here. There is no such thing as the petty lip here. I don't accept that. I don't accept people walking about feeling sorry for themselves. And again, it's not that dictatorship, Derek. It's just more in the sense that I believe that your job as a football player and what you're paid for is, if you don't get picked in that team, it's your job to go back to the drawing board, go and work even harder, go and try and impress even more, work harder in your game individually to see if that you can add one or two things to get yourself the nod the next time that comes. So that was 2010. That did motivate me for the remaining, I don't know, 4 years or whatever I played after it.
Well, I was going to ask, when you then became co-manager of Ross County with Stephen Ferguson in 2018, was that still part of, did that disappointment motivate you even more as a manager? Was that still there for you?
Nah, I wouldn't say so.
No.
I think it probably set something in my mind in how I think players should behave now. And how I think they should act now in disappointment. But now I would say probably more so for the playing side of it. I think when you go into the management and coaching side of it, it's not the selfish act. Everything's about the group. Everything's about that being united. So it's not about one thing. It's not about one individual. The way I see it, and I've always seen it for coaching and management, is it's now my job to think about the bigger picture, to look at it overall, as opposed to that one player that's disappointed in your team.
It was quite unique. You won a championship as a player with Ross County, and you then won the championship as a co-manager. And, you know, 2 fantastic years, both yourself and Stephen, but then you became the manager outright. And then within 6 months, it became like a struggle for you. And then stunningly, you revealed in a post-match interview that you'd been sacked. Was that just an impulsive feeling when you were going towards that interview? I'm going to do this.
I'll be honest with you. I'm always calm in adversity. I'm always calm in drama. You know, I hate drama. One thing I hate is drama, and I always try and pride myself in trying to be as calm as I possibly can be. Try and think clear. Try and come up with a solution, as we've spoken about already. That situation was unique because most people in football will know how close Stephen and I are, and still are to this day.
So was it Stephen that had to break the news?
No, Roy was there. It was obviously, it would have been Roy's decision. I think Roy found that a difficult decision because obviously I had a good relationship with him, and you know, I was 12 years at the football club as player, coach.
Did he tell you?
Manager.
Was it Roy?
Yeah, that was it was Roy ultimately that made the call. And listen, again, that's history. That's not something that's genuinely not something that sticks in my throat now. It's something that comes to every football manager. I think what makes it harder is when you've been there for 12 years and you live in the area, and that's where your life evolves around. You know, sometimes people dip in and out of football clubs. It's not the case that I was able to dip in and out of Ross County because I'd been there for so long. But in terms of the decision making process, one of my friends actually still to this day was the media officer, and as I'm walking through the tunnel, I said, listen, I've been sacked, I'm now going to go and speak to the press, and he'll tell you, he'll laugh about it, he didn't know what to say, he was stunned, and I said, well, you sit down there and I'll go and do this, and I just wanted to leave in my terms, and I wanted to leave with my words rather than somebody else's words, as difficult as it was. Had
you even had the chance to phone home to say what had happened, or was it just as quick as that? You're sacked, and then you go and tell it?
I hadn't spoke to anybody else. I literally walked out of the office and came straight out and addressed the press. Here's another thing for you, and I'll talk about it. I don't know any other manager that's announced his own sacking. I haven't heard that, and you could maybe correct me if somebody has, but
I can't think off the top of my head.
I can't think of one. I didn't know if I was doing the right thing. I still to this day don't know whether I've done the right thing or the wrong thing. And we speak about, like, say, coaching courses, mentoring, various different things. One of the things I always talk about is crisis management, because when you look at being a football manager, how do you deal with a crisis when it comes? And I would personally probably love to hear from, you know, whatever it was, a hostage negotiator, or, you know, somebody that's done something completely different where it starts to become that kind of life or death situation, as deep as that starts to sound. But one of the things we don't look at too much is and coaching courses and various things, in my opinion, is what do you do in that situation if your chairman's told you that you've got 2 games to save your job? Or what do you do in a situation where you've been sacked? Do you go and speak to the press? Do you come in and speak to your players? Do you just go and speak to your staff? Do you come back the next day? And one of the things that I never wanted to do, I didn't want to be the ghost of Christmas past. So I went round and I spoke to everybody immediately after the press. The ones I didn't catch that had already left the stadium, I made sure that I called them or I'd sent them a message, and I included every player and every member of staff in that, because I didn't want to come back the next day. It was then somebody else's job that had to take it on. Somebody had to move it forward. And I've seen it where managers come in the next day and, you know, they get everybody together. I've already told you, I don't send my missus I don't give my missus a birthday card. I'm not very sentimental that way. For me, it's about trying to move on in the best way for the football club, but also I then need to move on at that point.
I mean, that put you out the game for almost 2 years. Now, I think there's always a public perception that football people are loaded. I mean, financially, did that bring a pressure? You know, a difficulty, a real worry, of course.
I can confirm I'm certainly not loaded. I'm not a person that's earned a lot of money out the game of football. I've never been in it for money. But yeah, it becomes a major struggle. It becomes a major struggle for me, for my family. I'm not a lazy person. What I started doing was getting up and going out and doing a wee bit of labour, and then going out and working with my dad, who spoke to you about earlier, was a joiner. You know, that was important to me, to get up and kind of feel a sense of worth and make sure that I was able to go out and work hard and get back to what I've always done, which is getting up early in the morning and going and doing a day's graft and making sure that you get through your day's work and you come home and you look your family in the face and you've actually done something with your time. I didn't feel sorry for myself. I found it really difficult. Genuinely, I found it really difficult. Something that I'll speak about now, because there's a bit of confusion. You're moving your kids home, you're moving back down the road yourself, you're out the game. Fortunately for certain quarters of the media, they were fantastic with me. They asked me to get involved and cover games, which was an absolute godsend, genuinely, because up to that point I maybe going out and give my dad a bit of a hand and going and helping him, and up to the point I maybe going and doing a bit of the media work. It's a tough old place, it's a tough old time, and you don't feel that you do yourself or your family any justice, because it's taking you out the world. It's taking you out the world that you've been so used to. It was during COVID, don't forget as well. Yeah. Hear about a lot of managers going and nipping away for a few days and go for a break and go out in the sunshine, clear your head and all the rest of it. Without being dramatic, because I'm certainly not, it was a real difficult time for me personally, and I think that my missus and my kids and my family really helped us. But without question, the wee bit of getting out and covering games for various different media outlets, you know, for the BBC were excellent with me and giving me that opportunity. But also for going out and trying to give my dad a bit of a hand was, honestly, it was an incredible thing just to kind of get that healing process going, and just to get you in a place where you can get back and start to think about life properly with a clear head. And I always feel that now I'll be better prepared if that situation ever presents itself again.
Well, I'm delighted how well things are going for you just now, Stuart, and congratulations on the job you're doing. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Derek. Thank you. Top man.
Cheers.